Here is the DNA sequence, or part of the DNA sequence, from Michael Ibsen. If the DNA sequence from the skeletal remains matched with these individuals. And I can now tell you, there is a DNA match between...
No other artists in the Renaissance really showed that much interest in the natural world and the surrounding world.
Till today, Leonardo da Vinci's genius has fascinated the world, known for his brilliant and mysterious art that we still try to understand. He created masterpieces, invented machines ahead of his time.
What is beauty for Leonardo is proportion and harmony among his parts.
And studied the human body like no one before him. Now, his DNA has finally been sequenced, and it reveals a secret no one saw coming. One the church tried to hide for decades. What they uncovered could change everything we thought we knew about the man behind the Mona Lisa.
Tonight, the Mona Lisa, perhaps the most famous painting in the world, and her future.
For centuries, the idea of accessing Leonardo's genetic legacy seemed like science fiction. He passed away in 1519, left no children, and records of his final resting place got lost in the upheavals after the French Revolution. But decades ago, a dedicated team launched what would become one of the most ambitious genealogical genetic projects in history, the Leonardo DNA Project. After years of research, Da Vinci's DNA has finally been sequenced, and it reveals a secret that no one saw coming. Led by scholars Alessandro Vezzosi and Agnese Sabato, the project spent 30 years combing baptismal records, wills, tax registers, and parish documents. Basically, they tracked anything that could link families across centuries. The result? A meticulously reconstructed male line family tree tracing back to a progenitor born in 1331, covering 21 generations and more than 400 individuals. By following direct paternal lines, using the male surname and male line descent, researchers have identified 15 men today who are genealogically connected to Leonardo's father or half-brother. Then came the DNA testing. In 2025, 6 of those men volunteered to give DNA samples. Experts analyzed these and found out matching segments of their Y chromosomes. The paternal chromosome passed from father to son, nearly unchanged across generations. That match confirms that the male line of the Da Vinci family remains unbroken for at least 15 generations. Although we don't have Da Vinci's full genome, his DNA has finally been sequenced, and it's a major breakthrough. The genetic continuity has given scientists a foothold toward reconstructing parts of his genetic profile, or at least understanding what the bloodline of Da Vinci might still look like. As scientists looked into the project, they discovered a family tomb in the small Tuscan village of Vinci, the burial site in the church of Santa Croce, where relatives of Leonardo's, like his grandfather, uncle, and half-brothers, are believed to be interred. Archaeologists working with the University of Florence also recovered several bone fragments from this site. Radiocarbon dating suggests that some of these fragments belong to the right period, and one specimen analyzed through paleogenomics has been identified as male. If DNA from those remains proves well preserved and matches the Y chromosome of living descendants, scientists might be able to connect those fragments to Leonardo's family, bringing them within striking distance of a genetic portrait, even if not a full genome. The hope is that careful comparisons might eventually authenticate traces of his DNA, perhaps even in artifacts, manuscripts, or personal items he touched. Why does this matter? For many, Leonardo's genius has always seemed like something magical or inscrutable, born from environment, hard work, or divine inspiration. But the Leonardo DNA project reframes that mystery as a biological possibility. Could his genius be encoded in his genes? The investigation by scientists might not have found a genius gene, but they are looking to understand his extraordinary abilities, like visual acuity and polymathy, linking specific traits to his genius. They are looking to understand his mind and uncover genetic predispositions that contributed to his unique visual perception, scientific intuition, and left-handedness. As experts looked into Da Vinci's DNA and genius, they revealed a secret that no one saw coming. For centuries, the world believed that Leonardo da Vinci left behind only his art, his notebooks, and the fragments of his mind scattered across history. But according to recent revelations by experts, there was something far greater beneath the surface, a truth deliberately buried, protected, and suppressed. It begins with the idea that Leonardo himself was not simply gifted, but genetically extraordinary. Scientists in the modern era, digging into the remnants of recovered biological material and coded references in his writings, uncovered what some call the biological blueprint of genius. This wasn't a metaphor. Experts claim that the Church knew that Leonardo possessed traits far beyond those of ordinary men, like enhanced visual acuity, an unusual neural architecture, a heightened form of creativity, resistance to disease, and a biological resilience far ahead of his time. The story goes that the Church recognized these traits not as a divine blessing, but as a threat. It was evidence that genius, longevity, and human potential might one day be explained not by God, but by biology. To reveal that a human being could naturally possess such capabilities without intervention from the divine was unthinkable in an age when religious authority shaped every corner of life. And so, according to some experts, a decision was made. They decided to bury the physical evidence, suppress the biological truth, and ensure Leonardo remained a mystery of inspiration, rather than a product of nature. The more disturbing thread in the secret is what happened after Leonardo's death. Everyone knows that his grave was robbed and disturbed multiple times. His original church was demolished during the French Revolution, scattering his remains, and later, bones believed to be his were moved, lost, and eventually reburied in the chapel of Saint-Hubert at Château d'Amboise. But no one knows where he is buried today. But some say that his grave didn't vanish by accident. Shortly after his burial, his remains were disturbed, removed, examined, and possibly destroyed. Some researchers argue that the disappearance of his grave at Amboise is too convenient to be a coincidence. Over the centuries, the location of his burial has faded from record, and we can't even find clear markers or certainty. Some experts suggest that this was intentional, with the aim of eliminating the last physical proof of his extraordinary biology before future generations could analyze it. Perhaps the most explosive part of the secret concerns Leonardo's final notebooks. Near the end of his life, he became increasingly obsessed with what he called the threshold of the soul, a boundary between life and death that he believed could be studied, measured, and manipulated. His notebooks frequently discussed the seat of the soul, which he believed was where all the senses met.
We were able to rediscover the original forms, the quality of the blue. It's a wonderful blue.
He stated that the eye is the window of the soul and the primary way understanding appreciates nature's works. He viewed sight as the most important sense connecting the inner self to the outer world. In the Renaissance debate, Leonardo conducted dissections to find the senso commune, concluding it was in the brain's ventricular system. He connected the state of one's surroundings and physical health to the soul's nature, and also suggested that the soul is not corrupted with the body, but is affected when the body is damaged, like wind in a damaged organ pipe. But some experts suspect that he carried out radical anatomical experiments and early attempts at biological reanimation because of his extensive research, and these were ideas far too dangerous for the world of the 16th century. After his death, these writings were seized, sealed, and transported into the depths of the Vatican, where they remain locked away, not because they threatened morality, but because they threatened doctrine itself. The Church's greatest fear wasn't heresy of thought, but heresy of truth. If Leonardo's findings ever emerged, proving that light, death, and consciousness might be governed by natural laws rather than divine intervention, it would shatter the foundation upon which religious authority stood. And so, the secret was buried. But his DNA is hidden in plain sight, and experts are looking into it, and many of his radical discoveries are available today. Leonardo da Vinci was never content with simply painting beautiful pictures. His notebooks show a mind constantly probing, experimenting, and imagining what human life and technology could become. Across hundreds of pages filled with mirrored writing and delicate sketches, Leonardo laid down ideas that were wildly ahead of his time, blending art, science, mechanics, and even dreams of flight. One of his most remarkable obsessions was flight. Inspired by the way birds soared, Leonardo filled his notebooks, especially in the volume known as the Codex on the Flight of Birds, with dozens of sketches and detailed notes about bird anatomy and wing motion. From this, he conceived human-sized winged gliders, like a human wearing wings, trying to fly by, flapping them as a bird would. Beyond that, he sketched what today looks like a helicopter prototype, and imagined a screw-shaped device that, if turned fast enough, might lift people into the air. Such ideas, while never brought to practical fruition in his lifetime, show a mind trying to break the bonds of Earth. But Leonardo's curiosity and radical ideas didn't stop at flight. He wrote down ideas for practical machines, like bridges that could roll into place and allow armies to cross, devices that tried to reduce friction in machinery with primitive bearings and worm gears, and even a design for a self-propelled cart, perhaps a distant ancestor of the automobile. He also turned his attention deeper, penning down ideas about waterworks and hydraulics, pumps, and methods to redirect rivers, all showing he thought about shaping the world's infrastructure long before modern engineering existed. Leonardo's scientific vision extended into the human body itself. Through meticulous anatomical drawings, he treated bones as levers, muscles as lines of force, and joints as mechanisms, applying most mechanical logic to flesh and bone. He used cross-sections and multi-angle views in his drawings, and even devised a method to preserve the shape of the brain's ventricles with wax to study its structure. This was a method far ahead of medical illustration standards of his time. In the same notebooks, Leonardo combined art and science. He studied light and shadow, geometry, and perspective to master depth and realism in painting, but also mathematical explorations of proportions and symmetry. He mused on how nature worked, how water flows, how air moves, and how bodies operate, always looking for universal laws behind form and movement. In many ways, his notebooks feel today like a blueprint for modern science and engineering. Whether it was a diving suit for underwater exploration, a parachute to descend safely, or war machines reimagined for defense, Leonardo thought of it all. Reading them now, centuries later, feels like discovering a secret map. But he didn't only hide secrets in his notebooks, but also hid different images within paintings. If you look closely at some of Leonardo da Vinci's most famous paintings, you realize they may hide more than meets the eye. Over time, modern technology has started peeling back layers, sometimes literally, and showing that beneath the visible paint, there lurk drawing lines, sketches, subtle symbols, and even alternative compositions. One of the most striking discoveries comes from his iconic portrait, Mona Lisa.
Our classic Mona Lisa. Leonardo's portraiture always had very dramatic hand.
In a long-term study starting in 2004, a scientist used a multispectral camera to take more than 1,650 images of the painting. That work revealed a complete underdrawing, as there were charcoal lines around the forehead and hand that had been covered over by paint. In other words, Leonardo didn't paint the Mona Lisa straight away. He first made a sketch on canvas, transferred it, and then painted over it. That underdrawing suggests the possibility that an original paper drawing used to compose the portrait once existed and might still exist somewhere. The underdrawing also shows slight differences from the final painting, hinting that Leonardo changed his mind about the aspects of pose or composition as he worked. Beyond underdrawings, some researchers have even found cryptic hidden content, as expected from a genius of all time. They found symbols, letters, or even faint numerical inscriptions in the tiny details and under the surface layers. For example, in the Mona Lisa's eyes, there are theories that the initials LV for Leonardo da Vinci are faintly inscribed, a secret signature, invisible to the naked eye and only detectable under magnification. His famous work, The Last Supper, has inspired even stranger and more speculative ideas. Some believe that the positioning of the apostles, their heads, and the objects on the table encode a hidden musical score, with bread rolls and gestures mapped to notes. Others suspect that mirrored overlays of the painting reveal ghost-like figures or alternate forms, though these interpretations are controversial and not accepted by mainstream art historians. Scientists have also used cutting-edge imaging technology, which is more scientifically grounded in research. In one case, researchers applied methods like MAXRF scanning and infrared imaging to reveal earlier versions of compositions under the visible surface. Hidden beneath what we see now could lie very different figures, sketches, or abandoned ideas that Leonardo changed later. But aside from his paintings, even in his notebooks, Da Vinci has written out different codes that reveal his genius mind, making scientists even more interested in his DNA that has been sequenced. When you open the worn, yellowed pages of Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks centuries after his death, what you'd find isn't just sketches and ideas for painting, but a secret code written in plain sight. He didn't scribble casually. Instead, almost everything appears in mirror writing. The letters run from right to left, upside down from what most are used to. That strange writing style was initially puzzling, and it might have been more than a quirky habit of a left-handed genius. Many scholars believe it was Leonardo's way of keeping his most revolutionary thoughts protected from prying eyes. Open any of his surviving codices, among them Codex Atlanticus, and you'll find dense text beside geometry studies, anatomical drawings, and mechanical sketches. Leonardo filled these notebooks with diagrams, mathematical notes, perspective studies, and speculative inventions. His use of geometry wasn't decorative, but it applied strict mathematical proportions derived from ancient sources and his own observations. Most famously, in Vitruvian Man, he fused the human body with a circle and a square, encoding in the drawing precise geometric relationships and proportions that suggest his drive to understand humanity's place in nature. What makes Vitruvian Man even more fascinating is that, as recent analysis revealed, there might be a deeper geometric code hidden within it. A modern researcher identified a triangle formed between the figure's legs, and when interpreted through that geometry, the relationship between the square's side and the circle's radius hints at a ratio of about 1.64, a pattern of spatial arrangement that recurs in both biological and synthetic systems. Leonardo might have been encoding a mathematical key centuries before modern science recognized such patterns. Beyond geometry, his notebooks teem with sketches and plans for inventions, flying machines, hydraulic systems, anatomical dissections, and mechanical devices, all annotated in that same cryptic mirror script. Some pages were overwritten, and some diagrams were erased or altered. In one rare but spectacular discovery, scientists using advanced imaging uncovered a hidden figure in a notebook long thought blank beneath its visible text. That ghostly image suggests Leonardo might have repeatedly reworked and hidden ideas he considered too radical or dangerous for his time. As scientists looked into Da Vinci's DNA and revealed shocking secrets, they also explored his secret tunnels. If you wander through the halls of Sforza Castle in Milan, centuries after Leonardo da Vinci walked its corridors, you discover there is more beneath your feet than stone floors and echoing walls. Recent research has brought to light long hidden passageways and tunnels sketched by da Vinci himself when he worked for the Dukes of Milan. In 2025, a team at Politecnico di Milano used ground-penetrating radar and laser scanning to probe the ground under Sforza Castle. The results were astonishing. They found a network of underground chambers and walkways, some only a foot or two below the surface, that appeared exactly where da Vinci's sketches had indicated. The drawings dated from around 1495, a time when he was more than an artist, but also an engineer, planner, and military consultant.
There are a lot of theories that Leonardo has secret symbols and secret messages in his paintings.
One of these tunnels seems to lead toward the nearby Basilica of Santa Maria delle Grazie, the church that houses da Vinci's legendary painting, The Last Supper, and serves as the burial site of the ruling family, including the late wife of the castle's duke. Some scholars believe this passage might have been built so the grieving duke could visit those tombs in secret. Other tunnels appear to have had military or strategic uses, hidden passages under defensive walls that would have allowed soldiers to move unseen or provided escape routes if the castle came under siege. Today, researchers are using the data collected to build a full digital twin of the castle. This is a 3D virtual reconstruction that recreates both the visible architecture and the lost underground world da Vinci once mapped. This digital model might eventually allow us to wander those passages virtually, exploring history not just as a story, but as an immersive location. If true, these findings change how we view da Vinci. He was a master engineer and strategist, hiding blueprints beneath frescoed walls. In recent findings of da Vinci, especially into his DNA, experts have found out truths about his birth and his mother. The story of Leonardo da Vinci begins with a secret of lineage. What we know is that Leonardo was born on the 15th of April, 1452, in the Tuscan countryside, but the identity of his mother remained clouded for centuries. Recent research into his DNA casts new light on the woman who gave birth to one of history's greatest geniuses. Her name was most likely Caterina di Meo Lippi. Documents uncovered by scholarly researchers reveal that she was a poor, orphaned teenager living in a simple farmhouse near the village of Vinci, Tuscany, just about a mile from the later birthhouse often associated with Leonardo. In 1451, when Caterina was roughly 15 years old, she became pregnant by Ser Piero da Vinci, a lawyer from Florence, who came from a well-to-do family. Their union was not formalized by marriage, so Leonardo was illegitimate by the standards of the time. Because of this status, Leonardo didn't grow up under his father's roof. Instead, he was raised by his paternal grandfather, living in his grandfather's home in Vinci. It was a customary arrangement when a nobleman's illegitimate child required upbringing but could not inherit status. The social circumstances surrounding Caterina are complex and the subject of renewed debate. Some historians have argued she might have been enslaved before her emancipation. A 2023 proposal by scholar Carlo Vecchi suggests she was a slave from the Caucasus, explaining inconsistencies in regional records and the absence of family lineage. Other scholars challenge that interpretation. According to prominent researchers such as Martin Kemp and Giuseppe Palanti, Caterina was more likely a humble peasant orphan. Their findings are based on archival tax returns and property documents from the mid-1450s, which identify Leonardo as the illegitimate son of Ser Piero and Caterina. What remains constant through all versions of the story is Leonardo's origins in frailty and marginal social status. His mother came from hardship, orphaned, poor, and dependent on a grandmother's farmhouse, far from the courts and patrons he himself later moved among. In that sense, Leonardo's genius rose not from privilege, but from obscurity. Growing up under his grandfather's roof, unbound by the expectations of a noble line, Leonardo may have gained the freedom to nurture his talents, to observe, imagine, experiment, draw, and learn. His humble beginnings, far from diminishing him, might have shaped the very curiosity and drive that defined his life. As researchers look into Da Vinci's DNA, which has finally been sequenced, more secrets about the genius painter have come out, aside from the one held by the church. For a start, Da Vinci was never his real name. It simply meant from Vinci, from the small Tuscan town where he was born. His actual childhood was far from noble. He received almost no formal schooling, learning instead from hands-on apprenticeship in a workshop. When Leonardo struck out on his own, his earliest commissions, projects that could have defined him, often went nowhere. His first major independent assignment, an altarpiece, was never delivered. Later, the ambitious painting, Adoration of the Magi, remained incomplete when he left Florence for Milan, leaving only preparatory sketches and charcoal outlines behind. Yet outside painting, Leonardo had hidden talents. He was an accomplished musician, known in his day for playing the flute and lyre and even singing, a gentle, melodic contrast to his intense creativity and scientific curiosity. Perhaps his most dramatic project was a huge bronze horse statue commissioned by a powerful duke. If finished, it would have been the largest equestrian monument in the world. Leonardo labored on clay models and designs, but the work was never cast. The clay was destroyed, and the dream of a towering horse vanished. What becomes clear over his life is that Leonardo was a master of beginnings, rarely finishing. His mind always raced ahead. Designs for flying machines, anatomical diagrams, and engineering dreams. That restless curiosity powered masterpieces like the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. But it also meant many ideas were left hanging, half done or lost. Leonardo da Vinci's genius continues to shock us today, which is why scientists were shocked when they finally sequenced his DNA. Which of these secrets about Da Vinci shocked you the most? And do you think his genius is in his genes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. So, thanks for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one.